day. Before lunch, we were privileged to hear from industrial experts on the theme of embracing the fourth industrial revolution for youth development acceleration. It was an enlightening session filled with great insight. It shed light to numerous opportunities that the fourth industrial revolution brings, and presented by a diverse group of experts from different backgrounds. On the second half of the day, we will resume with our discussions with more experts from different fields. After the raising of all the opportunities that have been detailed by our previous experts, the news theme seeks to address the implementation part of our graduates, the TVET graduates, and the objective of this conference. The theme is aid and funding for employment, strengthening TVET graduates' prospects. And so our theme, again, let me repeat it, is aid and funding for employment in strengthening the TVET graduates. I'm sure this is, considering the topic of the earlier discussions that we had today, this one will be a very hot topic, so the discussion will be slightly longer. Do get ready for another thought-provoking and insightful session ahead. Without further ado, I would like to call on the podium the regional manager for Bank Windhoek Far North, who is responsible for overseeing the Far North regions from Omthia to Opuo, covering about, she will clarify on this one for me, 11 branches. Bank Windhoek has an appetite for SMEs and funding. They are the largest funder on loans and advances in comparison to other banks, so I'm informed. Her educational background is on finance, marketing, and advanced management. I call on stage Ms. Elise Mire Christophe from Bank Windhoek.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. All protocol observe. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch, and hopefully you will be keeping up. Normally after lunch, people tend to sleep, but I hope I will engage you enough not to sleep. As it was mentioned, my name is Elise Mire Christophe. I'm the regional manager, Bank Windhoek Far North, and responsible for the region from Omthia to Opuo. I'll be taking you through the presentation on SME funding. Just to start off with my presentation, I would like to take you through to the overview of Bank Windhoek. Bank Windhoek is a Namibia-owned entity that is managed or headed by our managing director, Mrs. Baroness Hunt. Bank Windhoek is the largest bank in Namibia in terms of loans and advances per market share, and more than 1,500 employees that are taking care of our clients. Extensive footprint across Namibia, and Capricorn Group is also proudly a Namibian financial services group listed on the Namibia Stock Exchange. have GIPF, which is a substantial shareholder in Capricorn Group. And some of the accolades that we have acquired, as you can see, we have a couple of them, but I will only mention the latest one, being the best private banking brand, Capricorn Private Worth by Global Brand Magazine, as well as the best foreign exchange bank in Namibia, also by Global Finance Magazine. The journey to start financial success on your businesses starts with a bank account and how this account is managed. At Bevengduk, we offer various loan transaction products to cater for your specific need. Our loan product includes the term loans that include agri-loan, overdraft facilities, article finance, that is now cars and other equipment that are qualified to be financed under article finance, property finance, letter of credit, letter of undertaking, performance guarantees, SME economic recovery loans. Business account can either be a transactional, which is a SME current account, business current account, or agri current account, or investment account. First, and notably most important, is to keep business and personal account separate. By doing so, you actually manage your business properly when you separate your business transaction from your personal transaction. Bank account offer convenience such as access to online banking, internet banking, payment, pay of staff, supplier, etc. Business wallet, payment to mobile number. Sometimes you only require service from temporary staff for a month or two, and some of them, they don't have account because of various reasons. So it shouldn't be a headache for you to pay these people. You pay them on their cell phone number, and those cell phone numbers serve as their accounts. Receipt payment, reoccurring of payments. You don't need to go to the bank to give an instruction to say, I want a monthly installment that goes from this account to that account. You can still do it yourself at your convenience. Easy of transaction through debit and credit cards. Bank accounts are safe and secure. We have secure digital channels and the secure use of debit and credit card. It's an easy way to save money. Interest on credit balances, if you have credit balances or if you keep your account always in credit, you have, you can receive interest as well. The benefit of having a business current account. On bank statements are provided for each business account, which simplify the reconciliation of the entity bank balances. And this, you can also acquire it yourself through internet banking as well, and you don't need to go to the bank in order to acquire a bank statement. Cash position. Having a bank account provides a clear indication of the entity cash position. It indicates professionalism. Having a separate business current account indicates professional, meaning that you know the affair of your business and you handle it professionally. Provides business transaction history to the bank. The business current account provides a history of the business to the bank that will consider when the entity is required access to finance. In most cases, those that are having businesses, when you want to acquire finances, you are required to provide your 6-month statement that give a clear picture that how you handle your account. And within that period, it can qualify you to get some funding. Internet banking. By making use of internet banking, outstanding payment can be done timely, which in return will assist in managing a good relationship with suppliers and clients. Proof of online payments is also available. Sometimes business people, they are so busy, they really don't get time between 8:30 to 4:30, 3:30 in order to be at the bank. You don't need to rush to go to the bank and do your payments. So you can do it via internet banking at your convenience, at your own time. We have debit card. Using a debit card to purchase goods for the entity reduces the risk that cash can be stolen. Withdrawing a large amount of money, we really don't recommend, because you just get out of the bank, you withdraw a large amount of money, then you get robbed. Debit cards can save us your cash wherever you go. People will accept the card and then you just make a payment with your card. Sometimes people are scared to say, if I want to pay 100,000 and my limit remain as it is, I'm scared if my card get lost, people might get access to the funds. It's the way you manage it, because you can always call your bank or your banker to say, I want to pay an X amount of money at this shop at this time. Please increase my limit. And then after I'm done, you can always reduce my limit to a lower limit so that we manage the risk. There are such interventions. What do we require in order to open an account? In terms of a business account, you require a business registration document, resolution from members for opening an account that states that you had a meeting for members and you have decided who to be signatory on that account in what capacity as well. We will also be needing members' IDs, proof of residence and business operating address, tax registration certificate, and other regulatory requirements, etc. Recommendations. A key to success startup business is the ability to get and secure appropriate financing. Bank Windhoek strongly encourage operating a bank account for the last 6 months or for at least 6 months to demonstrate your ability to manage your affairs to the anticipated financial provider satisfactory. As I indicated earlier, that having an account, it gives us also an overview as to how is the business handled. And within that 6-month bank statement, we can pick up anything that, it's necessary to make the decision in order to avail funds. Operating a bank account will aid the entrepreneur in building a track record that can support any future request for financial assistance. And banks are highly regulated institutions, and their main purpose is to safeguard the depositor and shareholder funds. As we all know, banks are regulated by a regulator called Bank of Namibia. Financing your business. Key to a success business is to start up an existing, is building a good client base, and your ability to secure appropriate financing when needed. Raising capital is a basic business activity, but also proven to be the most difficult, complex, and at a time, frustrating. Obviously, when you are just starting a business, you think, how am I going to manage my business? And it's something that is really frustrating in terms when it's come to funding. Our credit application process requires, to start your business, you need to understand how much is required to get started. Source of funding, the money that you need. Not always that startup will be coming from the bank, but you can also have your personal saving that you have saved. If you are already working and you want to start up a business, you can borrow from friends and relatives, making sure that you also pay them back. You can go to the banks, venture capital firms, and also grants. There are those companies that give grants for starting up businesses. What are the requirements for a business loan application? For us to look at your application, we need a detailed business plan, the business concept that you want to venture into, market analysis, marketing strategy for the business, loan breakdown with applicable quotations, cash flow focus for at least 12 months, business registration documents, tax registration, bank statements, owner and business as well, proof of business operating address, shareholder information such as their CVs, marital status, proof of residence, contracts, tenders, letter of intent, reference letter, etc. Other industry-specific requirement, if any. So what are we looking at when we are evaluating the application? The loan appraisal criteria. Viability of the business idea or concept. We look at the repayment ability, character of an applicant, expertise of the applicant, credit reference, maybe you have already done some work, entrepreneur management skills, whether you really have skills to run that business, employee creation and retention, export promotion, import, substitution, value addition within the community. What are the 6 C's of the credit? Main guideline when considering a loan applications is the character, the capacity, the capital, collateral, condition, and compliance. I think that's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much. I actually just forgot to introduce my colleague. I have a colleague that is seated up there. Maybe if you can just stand up. Eleni Kandume is an account analyst on SME division. So, yeah, thank you so much. Any question? Do I need to be here?
Thank you, Ms. Elise. Ms. Elise has provided us with a lot of information, some which might take from the banking services that are at the disposal of the youth. However, there have been issues that were raised here, especially by the entrepreneurs, that there are challenges to accessing funds. The conference, for some reason, has then creates a platform to bring this diverse group together that, to an extent, sometimes did not have an understanding. But when you do come together, you have an opportunity to at least raise these concerns. And once you engage, you would understand what opportunities actually are there for you as an entrepreneur and as a banking sector. So I look forward to the discussions that could seem really heated today. The second presenter for the day, for the afternoon, is on funding opportunities in agriculture and forestry sector. The TVET provides a range of vocational training, with one emerging being the agricultural training. So some questions that might come up are, what is the exit plan for the trainees once they get the training? To help with enlightening us on this, I would ask you to welcome Ms. Indileni Nangonga, the Acting Research and Product Development Manager at Agribank. She has held pivotal positions in economics, where she conducted extensive market research, exerted influence on national budget assessments, and spearheaded the development of innovative products. She is a true youth industrial expert. Miss Ndileni. I welcome you.
All right, I get next. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I think that's a lot of pressure being called an expert. I'll try my best. Right. I think I wanted to start off with just hearing my fellow young people actually venting on the ease of doing business and the inability of getting finances and land and so forth. And I must say that I once upon a time was there as well when I graduated. But one of the things that one can take away from a personal experience is persistence. For my first job, I had to go there 15 times before they took me. So just as part of my personal experience, that persistence actually matters more than just venting. So with that being said, I'm actually here in the capacity of Agribank. So my name is Ndileni Nangonga, the Acting Manager for Research and Product Development. And I really just want to take you through on some of the initiatives that we have done at Agribank to accommodate young people, women, as well as the previously disadvantaged before. Now, before I do that, I think it's very important for me to just say, to introduce who Agribank is and who we are. So firstly, we are a state-owned enterprise, and our mandate is really to promote and develop agriculture, and that's through financing. So what we do is finance. We don't do equity or partnering and so forth. In terms of partnering, what we can do in partnering is through corporate social responsibility and not necessarily through our loan products. And then, of course, that's financing the entire agricultural value chain and also related agricultural produce or products. Our loan book, it's not, I think, as big as my fellow Bangwenduk colleagues, but we have a book of 3.5 billion, purely agriculture and agriculture related. We are located in 8 areas. You can see Oshakati, Rundu, Katima, Grootfontein, Ochuarongo, Gobabas, as well as Marindal and Windhoek. So that's where we are located to try and cater for all areas of agriculture. Of course, we can probably still do more in terms of areas of location. Now, who do we serve? So who we serve commercial producers. So those who are established and emerging producers with either a title deed, meaning that you own the land where you're farming. We also do fund communal producers because we have a developmental mandate as well as an inclusivity mandate. So where you are farming or you're doing your farming operations on a state land, and of course you have then producer right on that particular land, or you are either leasing on a commercial land, that can be post-settlement and so forth. And then of course looking at the resellable producers, which are mostly through the Ministry of Agriculture. Right, we do have a number of products at Agribank, and I'm just gonna run through a few that we have. So we do give loans for production loans. We have horticulture, production loans, livestock, poultry, piggery, vehicles, but vehicles is only for farming related activities. So we do not give you a 4x4 just to go chill around. It's for farming operations. And then of course for improvements on your farm. So it can be fencing, it can be boreholes or solar. We can also then facilitate that at Agribank. We also do debt takeover. So the reason why we do debt takeover is because we are also amongst the banks that have attractive interest rates, of course, in the sector. And because of that, if you do find yourself, obviously, in the current environment of high interest rate hikes, and you find yourself not being able to service your debt, we can also do debt takeover. And then, of course, because of our longer repayment terms and lower interest rate, you can benefit of such. But again, you need to be able to prove that the loan has been used for agriculture. So we only fund agriculture and agriculture related. And of course, agro-processing is also one of the things that we do. So what are some of the interventions that we did to support our development and financial inclusivity mandate? The first thing we did is 3 years ago, we have launched what we call our Women and Youth Loan Scheme. Now I'm going to take you through what our Women and Youth Loan Scheme looks like. So we have 3 target groups under the Women and Youth Loan Scheme. Now I hope some of the young professions are still in here and will be able to assist them based on the criteria that we have. So we have 3 categories. That's youth. Now youth, we are looking at between the age of 18 to 35. So that's our youth category. Then we look at women, because again, women has been previously, or less women has been participating in the agricultural sector, and that's why women is our target group. Youth particularly because youth unemployment has been very high over the years, and it's still increasing, and that is why we came up with a particular scheme to then accommodate these target groups. Then we have what we call agricultural professions under this particular scheme as well. Now, agricultural professions, we're not having any age limit. However, what we're looking at is that you should have a qualification, an accredited qualification in any agricultural study to be able to benefit under this particular scheme. So we are again trying to target our agricultural students or students that have studied any agricultural study that might be sitting at home because they can't find employment, or that might have found themselves sitting at MTC doing admin work while their passion is still agriculture, to try and accommodate them, because we also do know that one of the challenges is lack of collateral. Now, under this particular scheme, we then relax our collateral condition. So traditionally at Agribank, when you come to Agribank, we will require collateral, whether it's 70% or 80% of your residential or your farmland. That was what we traditionally asked for. Now, under this particular scheme, to promote inclusivity, we then asked for either 3 of the repayment options, meaning that you have a repayment option now instead of just collateral that we usually ask. Now, the first one is through cash flow lending. What we are saying is that if you are really eager to participate within the agriculture sector, we will then want to see your effort through looking for an offtake agreement. We do know that offtake agreement is still one of the not much established industry, but through these particular schemes, we also want to promote offtake agreement. We from our side have also started talking to off-takers already to try and accommodate young people or people that want to participate in agriculture through off-take agreement to accommodate them. So what we mean by off-take agreement is that obviously you are subject to a valid off-take agreement, meaning that a retailer or wholesaler vow to take up your produce once you have produced. And that is really what we want, to stand in a place of collateral if you do not have collateral. And then, of course, Agribank will come in to say, okay, you have an off-taker, can we sign a tripartite agreement? Meaning that we have an agreement, we understand you have an off-taker that will off-take, and then if you do take your produce to that off-taker, the off-taker will pay part of your installment, then of course the rest of your proceeds will come to you. So again, just another way where the bank tries to accommodate, especially young people and women, as well as agricultural profession, to participate within the agricultural sector. And then of course we have what we call salary-backed. Now that's also an option that is not just for everyone in Agribank. So it is under this particular scheme, meaning that if you find yourself as a young profession, and like I made an example, you are working somewhere but your passion is really agriculture and you want to take up a loan and you do not have collateral, because we know that sometimes you might have collateral but you don't have collateral scope. So what we are saying is that we can then accommodate you via repaying this particular loan using your salary. Then you do not have to give us collateral. So this is again just some ways to try and encourage young people to then participate in the agricultural sector, compared to previous years where we would have just asked you for purely collateral. And then of course the last option, if you then find yourself with collateral, then we ask 100% loan to value. So again, a relaxed collateral condition, because in the past we would ask for 80% of residential and 70% for farmland, but under this particular scheme, we said 100% loan to value, okay? All right, now, there are still some of the general loans terms and conditions that, of course, we follow under this particular scheme. I think it's important to understand that under this particular scheme, we do not have any loan limit, meaning that it's based on affordability. We will assess your affordability. If you are giving us your repayment option as salary, for instance, we will then assess based on your salary whether you can afford this particular loan. So we are not going to limit you to say 1 million only. Your limitation will be either your salary or what you are offering as a means of repayment. Of course, under these particular schemes, the repayment frequency and as well as the terms of repayment will depend on which product you are taking. I think the previous screen that I showed in terms of the product, if you are taking, for instance, a production loan, so your production loan, your terms will then be 2 years, and that particular interest rate will also follow. If you are taking a livestock loan, 8 years. So depending on the product that you are taking under this particular scheme, those particular terms and conditions will apply. And then, of course, the interest rate, we have also lowered the interest rate for a particular reason. So this is also amongst our lowest interest rates that we have at the bank, where we are offering under this particular scheme, we are offering a 7% interest rate, again, to accommodate and not necessarily to kind of put you under too much debt obligation. All right. Credit life cover is a prerequisite for unsecured lending. So unsecured lending in this case will be your salary-backed loans as well as your off-take agreement loans. So those will be unsecured because you do not offer collateral. So then credit life cover will be offered by the bank when you are taking up a loan. And then, of course, we cover a number of sectors, looking at crop sector, agro processing, livestock farming, aquaculture, forestry, poultry, agrotourism, as well as infrastructure. So they are not necessarily limited to those, but those are just examples just to give you an idea of what we are financing. I think my colleague here has done me a lot of justice as well by just presenting in terms of what you need. So, of course, from our side as well, business registration, any licensing that you need to operate in that particular environment or permits will be required, and I think the list continues. We look at startups as well as existing business, but of course we will look at financial viability of that particular project. Now I must also mention that under this particular scheme, we do not give 2 products under this particular scheme, and there's a reason behind that. We do not do debt takeover under this scheme, and we do not do debt consolidation under this scheme. The reason why we don't do it is because with debt takeover, we are not capacitating you with new money that is coming into the market. That's like us taking over your old debt and just, providing some relief to you. So we do not do that under this particular scheme. This is to really push money into the market and capacitate you to be able to do your agricultural activities. And then there was a part of forestry that was in. And I've actually heard our director of forestry was here yesterday. Unfortunately, I missed that. But we did work quite closely with them to come up with this particular scheme and to try and accommodate those who are in forestry. And also farmers that actually want to diversify away from crops and livestock. So we try and accommodate them with this particular product and also address, of course, a global problem of bush encroachment. All right. So under our biomass financing scheme, what we really did this time around, we went into the market to try and understand what the market looks like at the moment. And we also went through policies and understanding why does policy allow and what does policy not allow. At the moment, through the Ministry of Forestry, we are aware that we cannot, as Agribank, give loans to biomass activities within the communal area. Until we get such directive, then of course we will then apply to our particular scheme. So again, we're just following laws and regulations from our side. So at the moment, our biomass financing scheme is done on commercial land, especially if it's production. Unless it's processing and you're processing in a town, like for instance, we have a processor in Arandas, then we can finance because it's processing and not producing. And there are, of course, I think reasons behind it, and I hope the ministry has done justice to that yesterday. So what we found other biomass production. So production is you chopping the wood, burning it into kilns, and just come up with charcoal. So that's what we mean by production, not processing it into briquettes and others. So we are talking about the production part, and I want it to be very clear. So in terms of production, we fund what we call working capital. Now, working capital, the reason why we fund it, we realize that most of the producers do not have immediate capital to actually buy kilns or to even buy your protective equipment for your workers, and that's why we then fund this particular working capital. What we have also realized with biomass is that you get a lot of unskilled and semi-skilled workers working for one producer, and that producer cannot sustain them in terms of food and up until end of the month or up until they are able to sell certain trucks. Therefore, we then fund them also with working capital to be able to fund food and maybe also wages over a short period of time until you are able to sell. Then, of course, we fund labor housing, and I think the reason why we put labor housing as well as FSC certifications is because we have realized that for you to pick up high prices in the market, they are looking for FSC. So, and we also realize that FSC costs are quite expensive. That is why from AgriBank side, we say that if you then want to be funded for FSC certification, then we can also fund that over a short period of time. Storage shed, very important when it rains. I think we are headed towards a rainy season. Farmers, producers always want storage shed, so we also fund that. Vehicle, tractors, forklifters, as well as equipments, then we also fund for producers. Now let me move away from producers and talk about processors. You should be aware that you might find a producer who's also a processor, but when we do our funding, we are able to distinguish whether that funding need that you want is actually for processing or for production, because we have gone out in the market and we understand what is needed for production and processing. So then you will be facilitated based on your need. So for biomass processing, we also do fund the working capital, because what we understand is during rainy season, not all producers will be chopping wood and burning charcoal. So a processor is the one that buys in charcoal at most of the time. So because you might not find as much charcoal during rainy season, processors want to stockpile, and stockpiling might require some working capital for that period of time. That is why then we fund that. Equipment, vehicle, processing plant as warehousing, we also fund that under a processor for a specific period of time. Now, I must say that we only ask for offtake agreement under a producer. So if you are a charcoal producer, we then say, we require you to give us an offtake agreement. If you have an offtake agreement and you do not have collateral, we will accept you at AgriBank. The reason behind that is because offtake agreement is already an intake process within the biomass industry. It's not something that we are coming up with, unlike what's happening in the crop sector and the livestock sector. I think that is something new being introduced, but of course with a lot of support from government as well, to make sure that that becomes an intact process within those industries as well. So in the biomass, that's already intake, it's part of the process. With or without AgriBank, they will have offtake agreements. That is why we then follow industry norms to say, if you do not have a collateral as a producer, we will then accept your offtake agreement in the form of collateral. And then of course, for processes, because for processes, the amounts are quite huge, it's a risk for AgriBank to just say offtake agreement, and also because most of the processes offtake internationally, the risk of doing due diligence for an offtaker that is international is quite huge. Therefore, for processes, we then ask 100% collateral. You must note that even for processes, the collateral has been relaxed because traditionally we ask 80% or 70%. So currently it is 100% loan to value. Now I want to leave, of course, the audience with some useful tips, because I have heard one of my fellow young people also saying getting a loan to build this whole structure. I think I need to give out some useful tips, and we have seen it across some of our products. Like for instance, we have a product called No Collateral Loan Scheme, where again, it's salary backed. We had a scheme in AgriBank where we tried giving out loans without necessarily asking for collateral, without necessarily asking for salary, without asking for anything, but then providing you with mentorship. And we have realized that that is a complete failure. And that is exactly why I will leave you with some of the useful tips. Firstly, I think start small and scale up. I think there's no need to start huge if you haven't done overall market research. And we also know that when you start a particular, I sound like a motivational speaker. And we also know that if you start a particular project, you can not only know much of that project when you start the first step and the second step. That's when you start facing the challenges. That is why from our side we say, don't come for a huge loan if you have the opportunity and if you want to start off. Start small and then you scale up. When you are able to pay the smaller loan and we can now start building trust, then you can start scaling up because now we see what you can do and prove yourself and gain the confidence within the produce that you are actually undertaking. The reason why we also say that from AgriBank is, for instance, if I just give you an example, if you are growing tomato, for instance, you need to understand when do you water the tomato, when do you plant the tomato, when do you prune the tomato, for instance. And you can only do that if you understand the whole process and you gain confidence within your agri-produce. And then, of course, pay full attention, be hands-on. Hands-on management is very important. There's no point in me growing potatoes. I don't know how potatoes operate at all, and I want someone else to actually make a success out of it. If you took a loan for it, then own up for it. Then, of course, treat it as a business. We have seen across, I think, historically, and even now as we roll out loans, that people actually take loans at AgriBank for agriculture, not to treat it as a business, but more as a legacy or an ego, or because I have a lot of cattle and people must see me. You are more interested in the horns of the cattle instead of the business that it can create you. And we have actually living testimonies of those things, and that's why I'm mentioning them. So please do treat it as a business. If you are coming for a loan, make sure that you treat it as a business. And then lastly, please, I'm not picking on anyone. All right. And then lastly, create wealth over time. It's also important that when you look out for these things, it's not a quick money-making scheme. It's a process. Farming is a process. So you make money over time. You should be able to be fine with making a loss in the first year. You should be fine with breaking even in the first and second year. And over time, you make profits because there's learning, there is plowing back, there's energy. And I'm telling you, I'm not a farmer, but I have seen farmers sweat when they actually go about these things. So with that, colleagues, maybe just as some of the remarks and maybe some of the advice that I can give, even especially our students. It's very important to be on the outlook for information. There's actually a lot of information out there in the market. One of the platforms that I look at for information is on Facebook, for instance. All the adverts and all the grant funding and all the loan opportunities that you can get, you will find it on Facebook. If you can't get hold of a newspaper, we like Facebook. There is a page called Job Seeking or Jobs in Namibia on Facebook. All those things you'll be able to find there. So I think it's also very important that we acquaint ourselves with the information that is in the market, but also being able to appreciate the efforts that are really being put in by our government. One of the examples that I can give is currently with, and I'm not a spokesperson for some of these guys, but some of the things that, like for instance, the NIPDB is doing, is that they are taking students or SMEs, startups that have actually done something. They are taking them, exposing them to the international market to be able to get investors or for them to be able to get grant funding. That is just an example. Unfortunately, these things will not be rolled out at the same time to everybody. But the more you knock and the more persistent you are and the more energy you put into your business, you can see these things materialize. I'm not defending the ease of doing business in Namibia. I know it's very challenging. But I think if we are more persistent in wanting to see things move, then we will see them move. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Indileni. I don't think I was wrong with calling you an expert. That was, again, another enlightening presentation. AgriBank products talk directly to the youth, some of them that have been presented here, to the youth empowerment with services that are tailored directly to their environment, where opportunities are actually there for funding to, let's say, TVET graduates. I bet the youth in different trades, other than agriculture, of course, looking at this, salivating and wondering, what about their industries? What's in it for them? So I hope you've been taking your notes and are preparing your questions so that we can engage in the discussion later. But regarding other trades, the next presentation will be on SME funding opportunities, presented by Mr. Robert Ayman, the head of SME finance at the Development Bank of Namibia. He holds qualifications in business administration with a career spanning over 20 years in diverse financial, retail banking, corporate banking, and development financing. Please welcome Mr. Robert Ayman.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm carrying two hats or two caps today. I am Mr. Robert Ayman. At the same time, I'm Mr. Thomas Kalimbo. So I'm carrying two caps. Unfortunately, Mr. Ayman is not feeling too well, so he couldn't make it to this August event. In the absence of Mr. Ayman, I'm standing in for him. My name is Thomas Kalimbo. I'm the manager business generation at the Ongwediva office. So I actually in my home ground as we speak. Firstly, let me thank the organizers of this event. I'm really humbled. I've visited the sites. It's quite fascinating in terms of the competitiveness and what we are trying to achieve as a country. We want to be industrialized, and we want to add value through those technical institutions. To me, that's really a plus. And with DBN, we are not a step behind in terms of that. We've created facilities that enables the youth to obtain funding from the development bank, which falls exactly into your mandate and what you are trying to achieve. With that, I think we are somehow on the same page. And the future looks very bright for those young Namibians that aspire to be entrepreneurs and skillful technicians. With that, in terms of the presentation, I'll talk to you what DBN is and what it does. So in terms of the development bank, the bank was formed by the Development Bank Act of 2004, and the government of the Republic of Namibia is a 100% shareholder. So we are owned 100% by the government of Namibia. In terms of our funding scope, we do fund large enterprises, we fund SMEs, we fund large infrastructural projects, we fund the youth, and many other funding facilities that we offer as a bank. In terms of we have also created very big confidence in the financial market, for which we do borrow money from the market, from bonds, that we then call lend to potential and aspired business people. So in terms of that, we've built confidence in the market space. Oh. Good. Yeah, sorry for that. So there's also now the transformative lending that I spoke of. We do provide assistance to the youth and young entrepreneurs that aspired to create business opportunities within the space of Namibia. What's happening now? that's not the next slide. Go back.
I think it's empty.
It can be empty. Okay, the next one. Okay, the next one. Next one. They've messed up my presentation. Okay, let's see.
Okay, yeah, let's just, I think go with that one, I think.
Okay. What is the next slide? Where is the next? Okay, so. Okay. So yeah, so sorry for that. It was just a bit of a pitch up. So in terms of the young opportunities, there's a skill-based finance that we offer as a bank. And really the intention is to power the youth, for them to create business opportunities and to become the future entrepreneurs of this country. There's also the SME finance that we extend. We'll talk more in details about that facility. There's the large enterprises, I spoke of that one. And then also the collateral and the credit guarantee scheme that we offer as a bank. I'll talk more in detail. So in terms of the SME finance, when we speak of SME establishment, it's usually your business establishment that have a turnover that is less than 10 million per annum. That is the classification that has also been established by the Minister of Trade. So it's not us who establish that, it's also through the Minister of Trade. Any business that generates revenue or turnover that is less than 10 million is classified as SME. So, and those businesses are the ones that are either SME growth or they are startups. So whichever you want to look at it, if you are a startup and your turnover is less than 10 million, you are an SME. If you want to grow, the same thing applies. So now when we speak of SMEs, they are usually your less complex transactions. So they are not really complicated, hence the word SME. And then the lowest minimum amount that we can extend to such establishment is 150,000. So in other words, the minimum loan amount that we can extend to such facilities is 150,000. Take note of that, please. And there's also provision for grace period. What grace period means is that it's a period in which we extend loan to you, but you're not repaying the loan. That period is called the grace period. Let's assume that you are constructing a business complex and you are constructing for 6 months. So for those 6 months, we will extend grace period on construction. We could then possibly extend another 6-month grace period on operation. So in a whole, we give a grace period of a year, which is made up of 6 months for construction and 6 months for operation. But what is very important with regard to that is there's no free meal. With that, there's a provision for interest that gets capitalized on a monthly basis. You will be charged interest over the 12-month period that we extend grace period. But you are not paying, but you are extended provision for interest provision accumulation. Okay? And the interest rate, usually it's a question that gets asked quite a lot. Yes, there is interest that gets charged on the loans that we extend. And for SMEs, the minimum loan amount or interest that we can charge is prime. Currently, prime is standing at 11.5%. That's the minimum. However, it could be prime plus based on the risk profile. You might be a risky client. So then we'll extend a plus on top of the prime lending, which is currently 11.5%. Okay? So now the SME finances, there's what we call business finances, which possibly includes things such as private schools. You want to put up a private school establishment, construction-based projects, business complex, business services like service stations, your retail shops such as your ShopRites, your Pick n Pays, your KFCs. We also do extend provision to manufacturing, mining, tourism and hospitality, and many others. That's now in terms of the business finance. We also have what we call asset-backed finance, where we could possibly buy you a grader. Let's assume you're in construction, you want to buy a grader. we could then fund you under what we call asset-backed finance. So that grader or that truck that we're acquiring for you could possibly act as collateral on your behalf. Hence the word asset-backed finance. It's a facility that we can also extend to the youth. Then there's the contract-based finance, which is the tender-based projects. Ongwediva Town Council extended tender to one of the youth entrepreneurs here for the provision of road infrastructures. Now, that particular client does not have money to start with the project. He then comes to the development bank to seek what we call contract-based finance or tender-based finance. Now, with that comes what we call a tripartite agreement, which is through the cession of income agreement, which then acts as collateral. Now, this is how the cession of income works. It's an agreement that gets signed between the employer, now being Ongwediva Town Council, the financier being the development bank, and the contractor being Kalimbo Investment CC. So they sign that tripartite agreement, which then gives authority to the employer, being Ongwediva Town Council, to pay all funds directly to the development bank once certificates are due for payment. So then, what then DBN does is they will then settle their portion of the loan, and then they will refund the client, being the contractor now, to continue the project. What that does is that it mitigates non-repayment of the loan or the default risk. Because now the money gets paid directly to DBN, DBN takes its portion, and it refunds the client. In that way, no one is losing out in the absence of collateral. And what that does is it acts as collateral. So it's very important that once the young or the entrepreneurs or the tenderpreneurs and the youth gets awarded tender-based projects, please ensure that the session is signed by all parties and it's being honored. Because once it's not honored, the next client that gets awarded a tender by Ongwediva Town Council, we would not sign the session and will not issue the loan because they are not honoring our session. So it's very important from where we are seated that the session must be honored. Otherwise, then we're on the receiving end as a bank. Okay? There's also then the performance guarantees, which once again is based on tenders. Get a tender of 1 million, you are told you must give a performance guarantee of 10%, which is 100,000. You could then possibly approach DBN to fund that performance guarantee on your behalf, provided you meet the requirements. There's also then what we call management buy-ins and management buyouts. I'm selling my business, I want to migrate to South Africa. You could possibly buy into my existing business. That's what we mean by business buy-in and business buyout. Okay? It's also important that we have an understanding on our stats as a bank when it comes to SMEs. We, on average, over the past 3 years, we have extended, on average, 120 million per annum towards SMEs, of which that amount, 35% went to the youth, and another 35% went to women. So in terms of our impact, yes, we are making a difference in terms of the youth and women representation, and they are accounting for a bigger chunk of what we are extending towards SMEs. Okay? It's just in terms of the stats, it's important that you know where we are at. Then there comes the youth, because like I said, I was very impressed when I approached this area. The youth are really busy, and that's the space we also want to play in. We're already playing in that space, and it's just to showcase that we are not left behind by the organizers. We are with them, and we are working hand in hand. Good. Skill-based finance for the young entrepreneurs. NQF3, artisan qualifications. Whom are we talking about when we say NQF3? We are referring to your typical mechanics, your plumbers, and your electricians, etc. All artisans fall under the NQ3 artisan qualification, and we could extend funding to them should they meet the requirements. There's also NQF7 and higher, which is your professional qualification. Here we are speaking of your typical doctors, your lawyers, your accountants, your pharmacists, etc. They fall under the NQF7. The intention here really is to accredit skills to mitigate financial risk. So We understand that your typical youth, when they graduate, they don't have any collateral. They've never worked before. But then we are saying, to mitigate that financial risk, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, provided they can prove that they are capable of working towards achieving a successful business and repaying the development bank loan. That's very important. The other intention really is to address unemployment amongst the youth. And it's a harsh reality. The youth, most of them are highly unemployed. And we are saying, should we have a very good concept, we would address that notion of unemployment in the country through extending funding to such youth. But also now in terms of the application, it must be, the company must be registered under your name. So, and we are only funding the youth that we are speaking about here. You cannot say it's an uncle that I'm with a shareholder within the CC. It cannot work like that. It must just be the youth that qualifies as an artisan or as a young professional that applies to the development bank. No third party can apply through the youth, apart from the youth themselves that qualifies under this criteria. That must also come out very clear. The other possibility is really for youth to become entrepreneurs and to create employment. The other one is really to address the skills shortage, which is real, and really to develop the future pool of skilled and experienced entrepreneurs. We need skilled people in this country. We need entrepreneurs for the future. And that's what these products give birth to. And you must then take advantage of these facilities. They're at your disposal. Utilize the opportunity to apply through the development bank. And really also to develop collateral for the future. Because once we have funded you, as you grow your business and you retain your profit, you must be able to create wealth so that when we fund you in the future, you're also able to offer collateral to the bank. Okay? The features of the skill-based finance, the minimum loan amount is 50,000. Minimum amount is 50,000. For the SMEs, I said minimum is how much? 150, you are good listeners. So for this one, for the skill-based is, minimum is 50,000, maximum is 1 million. Now, if you feel you want a loan that is extended beyond the 1 million, then unfortunately, you then need to apply through the SME. And the criteria for the SME is no longer the same as the criteria for the youth, because we are very lenient towards the youth. But within the confinement of 50,000 and 1 million, you qualify for this facility as a youth, and as a young artisan, and as a young professionals, as outlined on the previous slide. In terms of the interest rate, the youth, we are charging them prime. Prime is currently standing at 11.5%. For the SME, it could be prime plus based on the risk profile. But for the youth, it's strictly only on prime. And the maximum duration of this facility, the maximum term that we can extend for this facility is 60 months, which is 5 years. The funding really is for operating expenses and it's for assets acquisition. Whatever you want to do, and it's within the confinements and your business concept is convincing, we would partake to lend to your business entity. There's actually no collateral, or it's either low collateral, but ultimately we could possibly ask for collateral if the business concept is not highly convincing towards the bank. But in an ideal world, it's very low collateral or no collateral at all for the young professionals. These are now we could also then fund the asset-based finance that I've spoken of earlier on, which could also act as collateral. Also for the tender-based projects, they can also qualify through the youth. But also what is very critical is that this type of entities, you must have a registered legal entity through BIPA. We don't fund individuals, we don't fund juristic people, we fund businesses. We would not fund you as an individual, but you must have a registered company in the form of a close corporation, a PTY limited, etc. Okay? We would not fund you in your individual space. Insurance is required. What do we mean by insurance? It's usually the life cover and also insurance over the assets and vehicles that we would acquire for you. Now, when we say life cover, since you would be the key person on this project, the possibility of you dying is there. We are not saying you will die, but you could die. Yeah. Now, when you do die, the bank does not have any recourse. Remember, you were the sole member of this company, you are no more, your skills are no longer needed. Who takes over the business? Huh? So that's why now, in the presence of a life cover, we would then have cession. That cession will be ceded to the bank, and then you'll be paying your monthly installment towards your life cover. Now, when you do die, we call up that life cover, it settles your loan, and the difference we paid over to family or to whoever is the custodian of your trust. Are we together? It's a fair deal, isn't it? Yes. We are not saying you will die. We don't want you to die, but if you do die, we have a recourse. Okay? Now, your machinery and equipments on site, or your vehicle that we have acquired for you, there's a possibility that it could be involved in a car accident, or it could be involved in a fire accident. Now, if that asset has a fire cover, okay, or is insured, then what we do is the money that we sit to against the cover note on that asset or equipment, we would then use it to settle your loan against the bank. Hence the word insurance is required. Hence also the importance of it. It's a must, you must give those insurances. Otherwise, if those eventualities do happen, then the bank is on the receiving end. There's also then mentoring and coaching. Here really is just to give training on business training skills for the young entrepreneurs and tenderpreneurs. And there's also the financial management skills, really how to manage your business, such that you also learn to develop a skill not to eat from the profit of the business, but to rather pay yourself a salary. Remember, some people will say, okay, no, there's 50,000 in the account now, I can just go have fun in the coast, let me go to Cape Town. That's not how it works. So we need to train you on how to manage the business revenues. They're not your revenues, they're for the business. And you must sustain and retain profit towards the business so that you grow into the future. Hence those skills that I've spoken, mentoring and coaching skills, very, very important. And all the skill-based funding, all the youth, they will have to undergo this mentoring and coaching. Really just to grow as a person and how to manage your business better in terms of the management and the financial skills. Okay? Application for finance. There is an application form. We have a stand in the main hall. I would try to encourage all of you to pay a visit to that stand so that you can also obtain the forms and also the link to the application process. Unfortunately, you must have a comprehensive business plan, which must be well guided by competitive market analysis, industry analysis. You must show a very thorough understanding of your competitors, the industry, the pricing, suppliers, etc. Otherwise, we don't know how you would cope in the industry. You must really show a superior understanding, and you must do those research, unfortunately. So your business plan must be very comprehensive. On top of that, we do have a business plan guide, either through our stand or through the online website, or also through our office. It's also here. You could also obtain a business plan guide that could guide you towards how to draft and to craft your business plan. There must be a balance sheet, although we would not really pay too much details to the youth balance sheets, but you must declare what you have, what you own, and what you owe in terms of your assets. Collateral is really on a case-by-case basis. Some we would, some we might not. But maybe while we are on the collateral and the business plan, I would want to touch on a very critical topic that should come out very strong to all of us, is the notion of skin in the game. Skin in the game. So you are saying, you are coming to DBN, you want funding. But the question that remains is, are you also extending your hand towards the bank, or you are not stretching your hand at all? Hence the word skin in the game. So what am I talking about? You have two youth They've graduated. They're all plumbers, or they are all engineers. The one plumbing and electrical guy, they go out on site in Ongwediva, Ndangwa, Enana, Utapi. They try to look for projects, construction projects. They extend their hands towards the sites. They try to look for the project manager to find out, gentlemen, I'm a young graduate. I have this expertise. Can you at least extend 5 houses to me to do the plumbing work, and then you give me my provision for my services, or 10 houses rather? That's the one youth. That youth gets extended those 5 or 10 houses to do the provision of those plumbing services. This young professional then extends that provision. He goes to BIPA, he registers a close cooperation, he gets another 5 plots by default in Ondangwa because his workmanship is so good. He got a referral, he got more plots in Ondangwa. Those proceeds for his services goes through the bank account through the formation of the company that he formed through BIPA. The same guy, he gets a referral again, he gets another 20 plots in Enana, he completes, those funds goes through the business account again. That gentleman, after 6 months or 1 year, he has signed financial statements prepared by the accountant, and he has a bank account to account for. So that when he approaches DBN, he has what? Skin in the what? What did I say? Skin in the game. Can you see? This guy has really gone the extra mile to source business from nothing. Yet he has created a name from nothing to become a referral type of business. That's the one version of an entrepreneur. They just graduated on the same day. The other one, he graduates, he sits in his mother's house, sits, sleeps all day, does nothing, bagel. Now, the same guy, he goes to BIPA, he opens a close cooperation. Plumber like the other one. Opens a close cooperation, he opens a bank account. No money goes into that bank account. No financials to account for. The two gentlemen, they approach the Development Bank of Namibia. Now, I'm going to ask you a very practical question, and this is what is happening. Which of the two would you fund? Come again? Come again? The first one. Why? He has skin in the game. It's as simple as that. You see, it's two scenarios, but with two different outcomes. Now, as the youth, we must not create laziness within ourselves. Plumbing, as an example, or electrical work, what you need, it's a hammer or what have you not, you crack that wall. It's a service business. Go out there, go on site, get 2 plots. Start. Register your company at BIPA, form a bank account, get your financials, get the ball rolling, so that when you come to DBN, DBN says, come on, man, colleagues, this young man has skin in the game. He's not sleeping. You understand? So I wanted that should come out very strong to all of you, that some of you would get approved, some of you will get financial assistance from the development bank, purely because you have got skin in the game and you have went that extra mile. Those that are not willing to come out of their sleep, unfortunately also DBN will not extend their hand towards funding you. And I guess that's only fair to all of us. Okay? But we do fund. Okay? Good. So the CV also plays a role in the organogram of your company on what you intend on doing. That must come out very strong. We need to know your expertise. The technical capacity plays a role, because if we extend our money, we rely on your know-how. Hence, the notion of the CV and the company organogram, how you will achieve those goals. All documentations, once again, they're on the website. We also have a stand there. We have an office within the trade fair. Please visit us. Equally so, after this presentation, I will be around. You can pose questions and we can have a discussion. Know your client, KYC. We call it KYC, know your client. Those are now application that it's a Bank of Namibia requirement. We ought to know our clients. We will be asking for things such as your ID, your proof of residence, your marriage certificates. You must have good standing certificate from Finance, Social Security Commission. You must have certified company registration documents, amongst others. Income certificates, income tax certificates. All those are part of the requirements that you must have as know your client. Environmental social management plan, it's a requirement for the bank because like I alluded to earlier on, we do raise money from the capital market through issuing bonds and other financial instruments. And some of those requirements entails that all submissions that comes with the bank must have an environmental social management plan, but we do have a guide that can guide you towards that. And then really, the question that gets asked is to say, I've submitted my application, but how long will it take? The answer is quite simple. How complete is your submission? How complete is it? If it's complete, it should take around about a month. If it's not complete, it would take longer because of the back and forth. We have to engage each other for 2 weeks. You take another 3 weeks to come to the bank, and then you expect the bank to give you a response within a week, whereas you took 3 weeks to come back to the bank. We all need to be fair to each other, but if your application is complete, we will also be very thorough with your submission. Others then extend that question and say, but commercial bank only take 2 weeks. Fair enough. We are not a commercial bank. We don't have transactional account, first and foremost. Commercial bank know you in and out. The system is judging you already that you are an A-grade client or a B-grade or a C-grade. We don't have such systems. That's why we are a development bank. So our due diligence has to be very vigorous and very thorough. Hence, we might take longer than the commercial banks. That answers your question, should you come and ask us why we take longer than the commercial banks. I've already provided an answer to that. Okay? Yes, once again, assistants, we are here. My other colleague is there, Pietres, will be at your disposal. Utilize our services and our expertise. Application, and then collateral. Okay, owner's contribution. Now, on a typical SME, we could ask for owner's contribution. What does that mean? You want 1 million from the development bank. You have been working all your life as a banker, a credit manager at Standard Bank or Bank Windhoek, Memire. Now, you come to DBN, empty-handed, and you are saying, DBN, I want 1 million. But then the bank is saying, yes, you want 1 million, but what is your skin in the game? What are you extending towards the hand that DBN extending towards you? No, I don't have anything. And you have been a credit manager all your life. The bank will not entertain that, unfortunately. By the same token, another credit manager from Nedbank wants $1 million. She says, I've saved up 300,000 towards my KFC franchise. Should I turn her down? Huh? How should I assist her rather than the one that is coming empty-handed? You get me? You see, similar scenarios, but two different outcomes. The one I would fund, the one I would say, no, we can't. Unfortunately, we can't. That's what we mean by owner's contribution. It's really to share confidence in your application. For DBN to have confidence in your submission, you yourself, it starts with you. You must have confidence in your own application. And hence the word to say, let's share the risk. I'll give you 700,000, give me the 300,000. It's a fair deal. Equally so, a young graduate with a very good business concept, brilliant business plan, brilliant everything, mamma mia. I cannot really penalize him on that. He has never worked all his life, but the concept is bloody good. I would fund him. See, 3 scenarios, 3 different outcomes. Are we together? Collateral, considered on a case-by-case basis. Some we would ask for collateral based on once again skin in the game and the risk that involves or that entails the business concept. But it's on a case-by-case basis. Some we would ask for collateral, some we would not, some would ask for minimal collateral, some would ask for 100% collateral. Asset financed may also qualify as collateral. And then credit guarantee scheme, I will be almost done. How am I doing with time? Huh? I'm over time. Oh, then I must just stop. Maybe I must just stop. I think the youth is enjoying the presentation. Okay, let me be very fast. Credit guarantee scheme. It's reduced collateral through participating banks and at their discretion. Currently, there are only 2 banks that are participating, which is FNB and Standard Bank. What that means is that government, through also DBN, we have involved government that at times commercial banks are very strict. Government on behalf of the bank, of the government of the Republic, is offering 60% collateral on your behalf should you qualify for funding with those commercial banks. Okay? It's a facility that you can pursue further with those 2 banks. The DBN is currently not participating because we are already offering relaxed terms. We are not really asking much collateral, hence we are not participating. But we have also applied to participate because at times commercial banks are not really coming to the party. Okay? We are at your mercy, but we have applied and we want to participate. Rest assured. Okay? Question, do I have a round of questions or we are done? No, there are no questions. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a hot seat
now. Okay. That was, I lost track of time even as a timekeeper. I apologize, it was very exciting. In the last presentation I had alluded to the fact that AgriBank was very focused on who they are funding and that the others have nobody to tend to. I was wrong. DBN has come through, and especially with the skill-based finance for the youth to really explain the products that they do offer. And I think if we did listen well, there's an opportunity in terms of funding there. I'm also sure that the entrepreneurs, especially with the presentations that you were giving today, you were taking notes and your comments are ready, and you have been enlightened in the sense that maybe, especially the challenges, if I do remember the challenges that you did put forth, that chances are that there is a certain level of solution, which you can dig into further with the questions, so that the experts from the different industries can answer them. And maybe one of the most important part of it all is that the term I think that Mr. Kalimbo really said is you need skin in the game. If you are part of it, chances are that you can play in it. With that said, I am looking forward to the discussions that we might be having. So there is mics that will be passed around. We have reached actually the end of today's presentations. We had one more, but sadly they could not make it due to other unfortunate conditions. So the mics are ready. The banks, prepare your notes because I'm sure there will be questions, and I look forward to hearing them. The first question is Mr. Ndongo.
Thank you.
If you can just rise so that.
Thank you so much. I think these questions are not specifically coming from myself. We are fortunate and we are very deliberate in inviting the banks to this event, because right now we are just coming from the field where we interviewed close to 5,000 youth across the country. And some of the questions that are coming through from them, we promised them that we would forward them to the banks. I know that there are youth that are watching, over 1,000 that are watching this conference, and it will be fair and just if we also extend their consent to the bank. So I will try to be very, very brief and allow the youth who are also in here to get a chance to ask. The first question goes to the DBN. We have been very much involved in the facilities for artisans. And it has been running now, I think, for 3 years or 2 years. And one of the biggest challenge that the DBN has indicated to us is the challenge of getting a bankable proposal from our artisans. Now, my question to DBN is that has there been anything done to improve the proposals that they are getting from the artisans? Because I do understand, and perhaps I'm speaking under correction, that the mentorship and coaching only kicks in after you have been approved. But if your proposals does not meet their requirement, they will not engage you under that. So I wanted to understand if there has been anything that's been done, and also if there are some statistics, please share with us. I know that there was an advert that has been run, a certain young guy who got a loan, who went and buy his tools and equipment about a month ago. So please also share with us how many artisans are now currently who have benefited on that. If you don't have the information right now, so please maybe you can share that with us, because it's one of the biggest questions that the artisans are asking. On the SME, DBN presented here yesterday, and the country is moving away from the traditional concept of SME to micro, small, medium enterprise. And the way they have defined that, it's a little bit different. You have seen Julia's presentation yesterday, where micro, you need your annual turnover, anything below 30K. What worries me is that if you are still under the concept of SMEs, where the minimum loan, it's still pitched at 150,000. Are you sure you are not excluding some of the artisans who might not necessarily meet the requirements under the artisan facilities? And the biggest question is this artisan facilities indefinite? Is the time period, when is it going to close? The biggest issue is that some of our artisans, they did not necessarily goes up to level 3. Let's say for cloth productions, most of them, they exit at level 2. Plus also the CBET system, if you think you have what it requires, you can exit anytime. So we try not to bound these young people to really certain levels. So how to ensure that we include them on that? The issue of sessions, which is more the same with Bank Venduk, the 3 tripartite agreements. The concern from the artisans is that when we were in the field, often when things go south, and this is really them speaking, that if they are not meeting their quotas, let's say I promise Womanbrook that I would be supplying them with tomatoes. The moment I'm not meeting their quotas, because you are in office, Womanbrook, their office, I will be the first one to be cut out of whatever that is being produced. So meaning that if I'm no longer making enough money to cover both the loan facility and my share, so because Womanblock have to pay you first before you pay me, artisans felt like they are normally not included in the renegotiations of these terms to ensure that whatever that goes back to you, maybe it's reduced so that I can also get something for me to continue to operate. Maybe you can also speak to that. Lastly, it's a very quick one, sorry. Lastly, in terms of the business account, and I'm now speaking to Bank Venduk, can you just maybe tell the artisans, because our data is saying that most of our artisans, they can't sustain their business account because the cash flow is not guaranteed and interest are high. Specific question that is now online is asking, can you assess a business loan on my personal account? If I want to be given a business loan, my business account has been sometimes dormant, or I completely don't have it, because out of these artisans that we have spoken to, all 80% they don't have business account, and only 20% have business account. Maybe the term I'm mixing them up. They are saying that their business account are not separate from their personal account. Can you assess the business or creditability on the personal account? I think that's the question that I want to ask. Maybe you can also speak to the healthy tips of keeping your business account healthy in terms of ensuring that even the little money they get, why is it important that it must go through the business and not necessarily do transaction outside the account? Because that is also what is happening with our SMEs. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a comment while the mic is still being pushed on. Let's do respect the time. Make your questions precise so that we can all have an opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm Elisa Wanga from Nakayale VTC. Actually, I have two questions for Mr. Kalimbo from DBN. I would like him to explain more about the plus prime interest on a risky client. What do you actually mean in a layman language? Then the second question, if I heard you well, the youth, they must have a life insurance. They're supposed to have a life insurance for them to be approved, or is it after approval for them to have life insurance? And the unemployed youth, is it possible for them to get a life insurance from Old Mutual or Sanlam? Thank you.
Very important and direct. Third question.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Okay.
Raimonanda from the Ministry of Higher Education. I have two comments to make. The first one is to inform you that in 2017, there was an outcry of graduates who were toying in the street because they could not find employment. What we did in the ministry, we started a program that we call Student Entrepreneurship Program. And this program is premised on the Empretech program, which is rolled out in Ghana to support entrepreneurs. So we used that concept. We trained over 120 trainees, graduates across all 14 regions. At the time of the training, we were informed that there is 150 million Namibian dollar at FNB, which is targeting SMEs. When we completed this training, we went to FNB, we were told there is no money. The money was depleted. Now we are sitting with a challenge. The trainees are saying, you trained us, you promised us you have money. Where is the money? We had to run around. We went to the development bank. The development bank is telling us, no, we can't fund these trainees because the amount which they require is below our funding requirements. These students were looking for $5,000 to buy a welding machine, a toolbox, so that they can start their businesses. Development Bank is saying, no, go to NAMPOST, NAMFIN or NAMPOST. They will support you. We went to NAMPOST. They said, we don't have money. Now it is time for our financial institutions to walk the talk. It is time that we walk the talk. If we are talking about entrepreneurship, development in this country, let's do away with these stringent requirements that you are putting in place. These students will never ever meet those requirements that you have to start their own businesses. A while ago, I was interviewing one of the inmates who's participating in the competition. He's an auto mechanic. I asked him, my brother, when are you going to be released from prison? He said, next month. I said, my brother, when you go out from prison, don't go and look for a job. Don't go and look for work. Start your own business. Just get a toolbox and start in your neighborhood to fix cars. The first question he asked me is, where am I going to get the toolbox? I had to scratch my head. I said, come on, what must I do? Now I'm contemplating to go to my friends and see if I can get money. I can collect money, at least to buy a toolbox for this guy to start a business. I don't know whether people from the banks do consider these guys. These people have been rehabilitated. We want to bring them back into our society. They've acquired skills during their rehabilitation process. But unfortunately, you are going to say, yeah, but you are a prisoner. Where are your financials? How can we assist you? So in short, colleagues, let's walk the talk. Let's remove the barriers to support our students. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's take, I think there's 3 more hands, 4.
All right.
Okay. Okay, with the number of questions that are going on, I do advise that we try to make our questions as quick as possible because we are running out of time. And then maybe we'll take a few more because Mr. Kalimbo, I think you will be addressing most of these questions. So let's take a few more. I think we have 4 more questions and then we can maybe get an answer.
Thank you very much. My name is Evan Sinchindo from Zambezi Vocational Training Center. My question to Development Bank of Namibia is that he was very proud anyway to say this is a Namibian bank which is owned by the state, by the government of Namibia. But the interest rate for me is too much. The prime rate of 11.5 for a government-owned bank, why are we creating too much interest for our people? If this is our own bank, we have to look at ways to make this money accessible to the young people. That prime rate is for the people in the working class. But for the young entrepreneurs who are starting out businesses, it will be hard for them to start making profit if they are paying banks again at that rate. Maybe we have to reconsider in that line. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just, okay. Then just hold, sir. The next question, we have the gentleman, then we have another one, and then I think Mr. Nikondo. Was it?
Yes. All right, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Steven Angonga. I have a question perhaps should be directed to the commercial banks. You know, when you look at the agreements of these banks, it's more one-sided. I can say that perhaps the banks are more powerful because they have their lawyers, advisors, and so on. And everything that they put in the agreement is to cover themselves. Is there perhaps a possibility that a customer can negotiate on certain terms and conditions of the contract to say, this condition does not favor me, can you change it? Is there that possibilities that a customer can do that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Proceedings. My name is Nicholas Limbo. I work for COSDEF. We run a network of little community skills development centers. Just two very quick observations that I wanted to make while the young people were presenting. A couple of years ago, myself and Indongo, from the research manager at the NTA, traveled to East Africa, and on a project that was funded by GIZ, where it was it's called UMatch, where they were trying to link employers with TVET graduates. On the sidelines of that conference, I engaged in a discussion with a group of young people from Uganda that were organized under what they called Young Farmers Cooperative. What I learned was that these young people, mostly graduates in TVET agriculture, were geared upon graduation they would be allocated land, for instance, by regional structures like your regional councils and so on. Then they will be allocated an annual production quota for produce, which in a way is already uptaken by retailers and so on. And listening to the lady from Agribank, who unfortunately has stepped out now, I think if we start thinking about how do we organize these young people into structures like cooperatives, that they are then registered to run, to target certain sectors, be it housing, be it water, sanitation and infrastructure, and mostly so in agriculture. I think there are so many opportunities that I think the banks would really, really want to support these type of initiatives. Going back to where I work, we have a project that is funded by a German organization called Bread for the World. It's particularly supporting arts and crafts. So we have groups of crafters. I will think of a particular group in Opuo that produces leather products. And they work as a cooperative. They have established a market through Omba Trust, where their craft products are marketed abroad as a cooperative. I think if as stakeholders here, we start thinking, like we are rightly hearing what the banks are saying, that they see a risk in an individual young COSDEC or VTC graduate going to DBN and saying, look, I have this bankable project. Rightly so, because they will be questioning, like we saw the criteria, they will be questioning, does this youngster have the capacity to deliver? Basically what they are saying, will we get our money back? Does he have the capacity to deliver and bring back our money? So I think as stakeholders, we need to start thinking of instruments that I think most of the public VTCs, even at our COSDEX, we have a couple of small what we call business incubation units. Can we gear up capacity to incubate COSDEC or VTC, TVET graduates so that they, we mentor them, allow them to develop that adequate capacity to really, really run a business, that they can convince a financier to really finance a project. I thank you.
Good afternoon. I think my name is Martin Ngandu. I also work for an organization called COSDEF. First, I would want to applaud the presentation from Agribank as well as DBN. The way they are presented, it it gives a picture that whoever who has skill and potential and a viable business ideas should be able to prosper in our country. And maybe what we see when you go out of this building, the suffering, the youth that you see unemployed and whatnot, maybe there's no hard work. But when the brother from DBN was presenting, there's something that got me a little bit conflicted. And I think it could be the reason why we see a lot of poor people suffering still after being capacitated. This is the scenario of skin in what? Something like in the game. Yeah, that skin in the game. Reality in our society is, we know if you need to knock at someone's door, for you to be successful, it depends on who you know. Connection. All of us as graduates, when we were leaving school, we experienced this thing. You get sent off from the reception. You cannot come here. There's no opportunity. But there's some brother who has another uncle who knows another uncle who says, no, go talk to who at this ministry. That person has a leeway. I have an appointment. Now there's me who knows nobody. Now all of us, with the other person, we go to DBN. This person, especially, they build themselves through these provided avenues. Now, when government has established a very good intervention through DBN to cater for everyone, DBN is coming to say skin in the deep, whatever, deep in the skin. My humble request, I know Namibia is known to be an anti-poor country. Good policies, but it's supporting those ones who can make something, not for the poor. That skin in the whatnot. I think it's just my humble request to maybe DBN. I'm not sure whether I misunderstood the brother when doing the presentation, but it's a very disturbing formula. If I get disadvantaged because I know nobody, all I have is the skill and the viable business. It could be good and carry weight if it says, depending on the viability of the idea that you are presenting. Then we put in risk mitigating factors. That one will be. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I see we have two more hands, but if we can just quickly try to answer so before the questions pile up. I think, Mr. Kalimbo, it's ideal that you step on the podium so that I think you can address some of these questions. For the colleagues that have questions, just summarize them nicely, concise and precise, so that we can deal with them immediately. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. It looks like I'm in the hot seat here, but I'm not burning it. I will manage. I'll take the questions and I'll answer them as precise and as concise as possible. I will not be able to, my senior started off with very good insight and very good deliberation. I would want to bring one thing to your attention, which my senior has also alluded to earlier on, the gentleman up there, Mr. Limbo. I think he spoke of small SME incubator units that also ought to go towards capacity building. Also, I think within our organs, within our institutions, we ought to also train our people on accounting 101, business management 101. We ought to do that to address what we have proposed to say when we say bankable proposals. How do we derive at that? One of the solutions, my senior there has alluded to that, is small SME incubators, capacity building. We also then need to foster management 101 and accounting 101 to our students. Equally so, the onus also lies with the youth to ensure that we reduce the time that we spend on WhatsApp and Facebook. Go on YouTube, Google how to come up with a bankable business proposal, How do I account for my expenses? How do I derive my profits? It's basics, but we don't do it. So the onus also lies within yourselves. It does not entirely lie with the development to say, we need to train on these things. What are you doing? You spend how many hours on WhatsApp and Facebook, as an example. So the challenge, I'm also challenging you to do better than that. Okay? That's just also an insight that I also need to bring to your attention. In terms of the mentorship and coaching, yes, you are correct. Currently, it's post-financing from the bank. However, I'm informed by my seniors that there is an engagement with the Ministry of Finance to come up with a possible, I'm saying possible, don't quote me wrong, I'm saying possible, a possible national mentorship and coaching training that is pre-funding or pre-approval and in financial literacy. So it's an engagement that is ongoing, but it's a possible, it's not yet defined. It's in the process. I hope that has answered the first part. The other one is the artisans that have benefited from DBN funding. That's information that I would perhaps would want to share with you afterwards. But what I'll get your emails and all your correspondences, and we can take it from there. Sorry, my apologies. On the SME, yes, I did state that our minimum loan amount for SMEs is 150,000. That's what it is. But as an extension to that, DBN could possibly also fund what we call micro-lenders. Micro-lenders that would not focus on consumption lending. Consumption lending means salaries. It is someone that would want to cater to look for your possible artisans that needs a typical 50,000 or 5,000. That micro-lender could possibly be yourself. It's an opportunity that you could leverage on. Come to DBN with your proposal, as you rightfully say artisans are not being assisted. Get a loan of 500,000. Become the custodian of those artisans. It's an opportunity. As much as it is, you said it's a problem turns into viable business opportunities. The onus also lies within us to take advantage of such opportunities. And I challenge you to come to me, come submit, do your homework in terms of the market and feasibility analysis, and come submit your proposal. It's a challenge that I'm putting upon yourself. Okay? I hope that has also answered your question. Okay, in terms of the level 2, like you say, the cloth production, they are being excluded from the NQF3 because they are only up to level 2. Unfortunately, the way the product has been tailored, it's such that it only caters for NQF3 upwards. So, but it's an engagement where, and I think it's one thing I've picked up as a country that we don't have integrated engagements where you say you bring the vocational institutions together, you bring the Ministry of Finance together, you bring experts from the Ministry of Trade together, you bring experts from the development bank in one room. And I would like to believe when you bring them in one house, they should then deliberate on issues that are affecting all of us that ought to be addressed, such that we tailor products that meets the needs and demands of those aspired youth and others that have been excluded from funding. That is more of a comment that I'm saying, yes, I hear you, they are excluded, but nothing is stopping us from trying to bring all these people in one room and resolve such issues. So it's a challenge. I don't know who it starts with. It could start with yourself. Let's integrate and let's come up with solutions as captains of the industry. It's a challenge that I'm putting upon all of us. Okay? The cession of income agreement, when it comes to flexibility, and I mean this, There's no bank that is more flexible than the Development Bank of Namibia. I tend to be corrected, and someone must come and challenge me on that one. We are a bank that listens, and we would listen to someone that comes and say, look, the way the session was crafted, these are the challenges that could possibly come with the profit-sharing ratio. Could we possibly relocate it? Even if it means after 3 months or 6 months. There's no bank that is more understanding and that is more flexible than the Development Bank in Namibia. And someone must come and challenge me on that, okay? So the challenge is they can always come, we can have a discussion. If there's merit, we could always listen and readjust the cession of income agreement. Yeah, okay? I hope that has answered your questions.
Yes, but it's okay.
Okay. In terms of the interest rate that was raised, my senior there, the interest rate, no, it's my sister there from Nakayale. Prime plus. So what do we mean when we say prime plus? Now, there's something what we call a risk profile. Each application has a risk profile. We could possibly start with the market risk potential. Market risk to say, has this person really grasped an understanding of the market, the industry, and the competitors? Has this person captured that market risk? If the answer is no, you get a negative for that. Out of 5, you probably get a scoring of a 1 or a 2. We come to technical and management risk. This guy is an accountant. He wants to start a garage, fixing cars. There's a mismatch there already. So that risk remains a technical risk. You are doing something that you don't have knowledge on because you have studied accounting and you have never managed a garage before on top of that. It is a technical risk plus a management risk. Okay? Then the risk goes on and on. Collateral risk. What are you offering? I'm offering nothing. Now, when you group all these risks together, then the metrics throw out a red. It shows that you are a high-risk client. For that, we could possibly charge you prime plus 4 or prime plus 5. On another token, another client has matched all the ticks. We would possibly then charge him prime. Has that answered your question? Thank you, ma'am. Now, in terms of the youth, the life cover, usually it's a condition precedent. In other words, it's a drawdown condition. You get approved, and then before we fund, you go to the insurance company to take out an insurance. But you also don't pay for it immediately. All what it does, it deducts a month later. And that's why it becomes very important that you need to do your feasibility study in terms of the market. Is there enough market for you to generate money such that every month you can pay for that life cover plus the cover note on the machineries and equipment? That homework lies with you. Equally so, when you apply, you must make provision for your working capital. Let's say for your first 3 months, you are saying, for the first 3 months or the first 6 months, I'm not too sure whether I can really materialize or realize the revenue that I projected. At least cover my monthly expenses for the first 6 months as part of my bigger loan. Are we together? So that we pay for your monthly expenses for the first 3 or 6 months, including the life cover and the insurance over your machineries and equipment. And then your salaries, your electricity, your water, your marketing. That's why you need to do your homework. What are your aspired monthly expenses? Make provision for them. So that you cover, you make it part of your loan. So that then it addresses the notion to say, if I'm unemployed, yes, you're unemployed, we gave you money. You must work, generate money, and start to pay for your life cover. Has that been answered? Thank you. Let's move. The 2017 graduates, yes, I remember that program. I think I remember the program very well. The 120 constituencies made up of youth from, I think 10 or 20 youth from every constituency that had to go through a training where they came up with business concept. And unfortunately, it's now, I would not say now whether it's the lack of coordination between DBN or FNB and those youth. There must have been some sort of misunderstanding to some level. That thing never kicked off because those people did not meet the minimum threshold. How they've derived at not meeting that, although they were aware, I don't know. So it's a mismatch. There's lack of coordination between the three entities. And that's the only answer I could possibly give to you. That's why they never kicked off. The loan amount were way below the minimum threshold. And we couldn't bend the rules purely just for them to get a leeway. We have to be consistent, unfortunately. Okay? Interest rate is very high. I see near there, it's a very good observation. Yes, interest rate is very high. In my presentation, I also mentioned to say that we've become captain of raising money from the capital market. We are issuing bonds in the market space. The government needs are no longer catering. We have a loan book of 7 billion now. Government is no longer able to cater for those loans for us to fund. So we go borrow money from the capital market. Now that money is not like the money in Bank Windhoek, which is your deposits. There's a very big difference. Commercial banks are sitting on your deposits and they go co-lend it. It sits on a 32-day where you are getting an interest of 2% or 1%. They go lend it to you for how much? 8%. No, 11.5%. We don't have that luxury. Now, we are literally going to the market saying, we will issue this piece of paper, give us 500 million, or give us 1 billion, we'll repay it back to you at an interest of 8 or 9%. Now, what happens to our margin? We have employees that we need to pay on a monthly basis. We have offices that we need to pay rent and electricity on a month. So we need to cater for margins to what? To offset our operational expenses. Otherwise, DBN will become what? An unsustainable bank, and it will become history like those that went before us. Unfortunately, we need to take care of the bank also so that it remains sustainable. Given the fact that now our main shareholder is no longer able to cater for all our needs, we need to go borrow money from the market. As a result, that money does not become cheap, does not come cheap, because we don't have deposits, whereas commercial banks are seated on your deposits. So that's in a layman's term, that's the only context I can answer you with. To say interest, yes, it is what it is, because unfortunately, we cannot run the bank down, because if we do that, DBN will close. Okay? We can have a discussion thereafter, but in a nutshell, that's what it is. Unless then we get given a certain amount to say, this money, extend it to the youth and give it to them at prime less 5 or at 7 or 8%. That we can do if that money is granted to us. Okay? Good. And then we move on. Now, I want to make one thing clear to all of us. When I spoke of the business plan, I did mention that it must be a bankable business proposal, business proposition. I did state that, and I did state that you need to focus on the market analysis that focuses on the competition, the industry, the suppliers, the pricings, etc. So, rule number 1 that I spoke of is financial viability, and the business case must be viable. I did state that. Now, that's the first thing I've said. Now, the issue of skin in the game, those are examples that I've used to say you could possibly also come to an extent where you need to scale down and to weight the submissions to say, okay, now, this gentleman claims that there's a market for his product. But then the question is, this guy and this one, they have similar transactions. This one is a step ahead, this one has not done anything. On top of that, his business case is not convincing. Okay, now that's the clarity I want to bring to the issue of skin in the game, to say, sometimes it boils down to the margin of error, to say, okay, now, if we have now the bank needs to fund these entrepreneurs or these youth, how do we fund them? How convincing is your business case? If your business case is not convincing, but yet you have done so well on these things that you claim to have done, then the bank will say, but hold on, the gentleman's business case is not convincing, but we could possibly look at how he has been doing. Equally so, this one's business case is so convincing, but he has not done anything. It does not mean he has not done anything, you penalize him, because he has a very good concept. It's a bankable transaction. We would still fund him. Now, to add to that, we are not a one-man show as a bank. We have capable people within the process that review each and every application. And they all apply their sober, technical, and experienced minds. So for one to really say that it's a connection game, that's not the right word I would want anyone to have used on this platform. That's ill-advised, and we should shy away from making such statements, unless you have substantial proof towards that. It's not something that we'll take down lightly as a bank. So that's really the context of it. Everything that we do is based on merit, and we have credible people that review and make pronouncement on each and every submission. It's not a one-man show. And each one applies their independent minds towards each and every application. I wanted to make that clear to all of us and to set the record straight. Okay? Yeah, I think that's all. That's all the questions that we ask. Yeah, I did well.
You have done well. We have several more questions, I think, that were raised, or that some hands that were up. We will get a few comments from the other presenter quickly, and then we'll take the last round of questions. And I think we can call it a day.
I'll be very brief. I think my colleague here did well. I just wondered, I think there was a question specifically talking about if a producer is not able to meet the arrangement. So, and I'm going to speak from AgriBank's perspective. So what we do is when we participate in offtake agreements, we do sign MOUs with the off-taker, meaning that we make sure that, number one, the producer is not ripped off in terms of pricing. Number two, we extend, sorry. Is it fine here? Right. I was shying away from here. All right, so firstly, we make sure we sign MOUs with an off-taker to make sure that you as a producer, you're also not ripped off. So we might have more information and skills in terms of how these particular markets operate than you, and that is why we assist through an MOU perspective, to make sure that pricing-wise, you're not ripped off, but also in terms of capacity building, we have a team that we call our advisory service division in AgriBank, where we say, if you have an unsecured lending, we can extend some capacity building towards your production or whatever farming enterprise it is that you are doing, especially to ensure that you do deliver, number one, quality, but also to make sure that you keep that relation between your off-taker, afloat until our loan at least is paid back. So we are in that game as well. Number two, I think there was a lot of references towards collaboration. We also do want to thank, of course, collaborators like NYS. I think that's one of the guys that we have MOU with. GIZ has been supporting us, especially with the Women and Youth program. They have been supporting and funding our advisory service division to make sure that we go out there, we train people, and they're also aware of the product. So collaboration from the market, as much as it needs to be intensified still, there is some sort of collaboration, and we are really grateful for that as well. And then there was a question in terms of Working together is great, and it's not just institutions that needs to work together. We need farmers to work together as well, and I like the point that was raised in terms of cooperatives. We do have cooperatives in Agribank. We have funded cooperatives, and it's a great thing where young people come together and form a cooperative. But it's also very important that as you form that cooperative, you also, again, make yourself aware or at least understand financial literacy and accounting 101, I think, as we understood there, because one of our bad books in Agribank is the cooperatives, as much as we want to support cooperatives. So that's just a point to put on the side to say, we do support groups, organized groups, but also become prepared and know that you will repay that particular loan. Some of the other supports that we also give at obviously lower interest rates are the ones that we have in partnership with government. That's through our post-settlement support. So if you are resettled, for instance, you can then get a loan from Agribank through that post-settlement arrangement at 4%. We also have a loan scheme for the communal area that also is in partnership with government where we give it at 4%. But again, you need to prove bankability and viability of your own project. So there are schemes, there are grant fundings, there are low interest rates, initiatives in the market, but we also need to bring our part, yeah.
Before we take the second round of questions, there was a question by the gentleman to the commercial banks. It was really short and simple, and I think it was about, can an applicant negotiate the terms of the contract, or do they just take what you have to offer?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Eleni Kandume.
Just put the mic slightly closer to you.
All right, my name is Eleni Kandume, account analyst. All right, on the considering the agreement of a term loan, because it's like you are putting yourself into trouble. How can you just sign something being offered without no discussion? So for simple, there's always a room for discussion. You can negotiate on your because all what the bank needs is their monthly payment. So if the monthly payment cannot suit you, why should you take it up? So that's very simple. So there's room for discussion. And on the other, there was a question on personal account. Differentiate your business from your personal account. So that's your students. And yeah, bank window gave account, you can open an account with $70 new accounts, business check account. So $70. So our rate, I don't think there's one in the commercial market which you can open a business account with $70. Thank you very much. It's a check account with $70. No, it's monthly fee is very reasonable. Just it's less than $10.15.
Okay.
All right.
See, concise and precise. Directly to the point, and then we keep it moving. We'll take we are still, I think I want to upload myself on time again. We are right on time, we're doing well, so we'll take the last batch of questions so that our experts can answer, and ideally if also you can include past questions if you had one, because we do have a panel of a lot of experts. The first question here, and then the second mic.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julanda Mbako, an accountant at one of the pharmaceutical distributors in Ongwediva, NewMed. My question was to DBN about the youth skilled funding. I wanted to ask, yesterday we heard the youth that were presenting yesterday, they may have qualifications in one industry as artisans, but be working in another. Will they also qualify for funding? Under the skilled youth funding, because the youth funding has lesser requirements in the SME? Thank you.
Thank you. Second here. Oh, yeah, you can ask. Let me just pass.
Okay, good afternoon once again, and thank you very much for the opportunity. My question is quite straightforward. It comes to the issue of collateral. As you know, we live in different suburbs within this town and the cities. I just wanted to ask, do the banks, including DBN, do you guys take properties in unserviced areas as collateral? Or do you only take those in serviced areas? I mean in terms of houses and everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Fernando Kaushwet John. I am one of the entrepreneurs. I just want to support the questions that was posted by Mr. Indongo. I'm having 19 years in construction and 9 years into education, TVET. I want to say something when you talk about the youth and how the youth we are going through. With this bank, whether starting from conventional or DBN, there is a lot that need to be done when it comes to us to apply for loan and to get loan. Those qualifications, requirements, let them be removed automatically if we want to support the youth of Namibia. I've been applying since when I was in constructions to get loans, whereby you have been rejected here and there. In 2019, I applied for equipment into VTC. I'm the owner of Ngato Vocational Training Center as I speak. At that time, my quotation was at 1.2 million at 2019 for equipment, 5 equipment in welding. With this lot of papers that we need to give, in all those 2 years, 3 years, I was fighting to get these papers. Come to 2022, the quotation from USTAR went up to 1.8 million. Last year, the quotation went to 2.5. I met all the paperwork. Reaching there, they are saying, no, your financial is showing you did not make money. Remember, we are in TVET, we are in education, we are not making much profit there. We are buying consumable tools and not tools, consumable material for students and so forth. And yet, I got that letters from DBN, rejection letter that your financial assessments do not support that you are making money. Look, we are into training to support the youth. We want to train others in that area. But for us to get that equipment, for you to meet the standard, back there in 2019 is because the area where I was applying that in welding and metal fabrication, by that time, that qualification was not registered by NT and accredited by NQA. They were saying, this course is not registered. So you need to fight for 2 years, 3 years to get registered. When you get that one, DBN is still coming with other qualification that goes there. Speaking on the artisans for level 3 to apply, I myself, I gained some short courses here and there, and then I did some other through South Africa's, but most of them at level 2, as the speaker was saying there. Now, the TVET sector itself, it says, when you exit at that level 1, for example, in bricklaying, if I can be able to lay bricks, to make bricks, it's a business now everywhere to make bricks. And I have this business running and making money small by small to satisfy my family needs. But if I want to now to supply, I have somebody to supply with large quantity. I want now to take this money for artisans with the level 2, which is in bricklaying. I cannot qualify. So, meaning to say, the TVET itself, when it comes to NTA, somehow what we are saying, it's not what it's been implemented by our government. And then, when it comes now to artisans themselves, for those who goes to upper level, level 3 and 4, those are one looking for employment. But for those who want to go to TVET for a reason, for self-employed, they exit at a lower level in order for them to start their own companies. So what I'm trying to say is that if we really need the youth to, the other side, they said that the youth are not doing anything. We are busy manufacturing, we are producing, but the issue still comes to where do you supply? They were given an example of a plumber going to look for a job here to subcontract from the real contractor. You see what happened in the industry. You can go there with your certificate. Our graduate goes there with a certificate. Once he asks for a job, for example, in plumbing, you charge for a 22,000 to plumb 3 houses. This person who got these tenders is going to look for people that don't have qualification in order to pay them peanuts. And then now you who have qualifications, you will never have an account for that business because there is no one who wants to give you a job. That's how the youth with their qualifications are going to drive taxis and car wash and so forth. Because for those who do not have qualification, when they are paid $20, it's good for Tombo and other things. I thank you.
Thank you. Okay, those are valid points. Some key questions, actually. That is the last take of rounds of questions, and I think from our experts in the audience, maybe Mr. Ndongo, do you have any suggestion of how we can answer these questions? I think one of the questions from...
I don't really want to speak on behalf of the banks because this is really an opportunity for the young people to interact with the bank. But system-specific questions, we can attend to that. Like I said, this facility that is being offered by Development Bank, we have been part and parcel of it. The team that went to all the regions conducting the tracer study that I presented yesterday, they went with copies, in fact, of this advert of Development Bank. And we have sent it out to about 10,000 TVET graduates that have emails that are still active. So it's really an initiative that I think we just need to look at what are those issues that are there as indicated by our very good friend here. I think in terms of the issue that is not being addressed, and maybe when they take the floor, one of the questions from our colleague from Zambezi VTC was, why is Agribank interest rate lower and DBN interest rate seems to be a bit high? And we both believe that they are both owned by government. Agribank is talking about 7%, sometimes even say 4%. DBN is talking about 11.5%. Perhaps you can also attend to that. I know that you may be formed by different acts and you operate on different procedures and all that, but maybe you can also address to that. But issues that are pertaining to system-wise, I think that is the reason why we are here, and we're trying to really find solutions to these issues. I'm just a little bit disappointed by the youth that you are not asking more questions, because most of your questions pay the data that we have. You have either said sometimes you apply to the banks and they don't even respond. And sometimes you applied and you are told that your applications is not bankable, but we understand they also give you intensive feedback to say, where exactly is your application lacking? There is a huge also concept where it's not really a popular thing to mention, where most of our graduates run to few Zimbabweans who are writing business proposal. And when you read those business proposals, you can clearly see that it's almost the same with the business proposal that you have seen somewhere. And I think the discussion that we have with the Development Bank of Namibia is that they don't fancy the English. Your proposal can be not in the Queen's English, but if it's making sense, if it's having the ideas, then they can still sit with you and probably polish it up. So these are the things that I still want to see, and perhaps the discussion will continue even tomorrow and beyond that, we provided this opportunity to you guys. Thank you. Martin, you wanted to say something? It's a King English. Okay, thank you. Oh, Mehero. So rest in peace, Martin.
Okay. One last question, I guess? No? Okay. With that said, thank you very much, Mr. Ndongo. Well, I think this concludes our discussion for the day, the conference for today. We thank the NTA for organizing such a platform to not only share information, but also exchange enlightenment, especially to the youth. Furthermore, we do extend the appreciation to the sponsors, presenters, the delegates, participants, the invited guests, both online and present. Everybody present has made Day 2 of the National Skills Competition Conference 2023 a success, I think. May the information shared here be fuel, especially to the youth, that you needed to take off. May you take it further in understanding that the industries that have been presented do have you at heart, and there are products out there that can complement your ventures, and you can follow up and engage with them for future discourse as well. Other than that, I thank everybody for coming through. Mr. Ndongo has something?
Just a quick announcement. So can we please come early tomorrow? At least if you come 8 o'clock, we can start 8:30, so that we finish early and allow the conference attendees to also go see what is happening in the competition area. So our aim is to finish as early as possible tomorrow. So, but that depends on you, because we can't start with an empty hall. So if you are early, then we can finish early tomorrow, so that you can also go see what is happening in the competitions. Thank you.
The early bird catches the worm. Other than that, I was concluding. I thank you everybody for having attended. I wish you a good day and a good evening.
This is what you are, this is what you are, be a man of bravery, be a man of bravery, this is what you are, this is what you are,
Madiba. The king is back and I'm here to stay. My strength is high and I'm ready to play. Bahupula could have went astray. Elekenet ni ekesiman van Hoto. I plan my fate to just stay on top.
Alpha and Omega. Now I'm here, and yes, he has made me better.